Every time a ship crosses the Panama Canal, the ocean doesn't pay for the trip. A rainforest does. 200 million liters of fresh water, the kind you can drink, are released into the sea for a single transit. That happens dozens of times a day, every day. Most people think the canal just connects two oceans. It doesn't. It's a freshwater machine, powered entirely by rain. And on June 4, 2026, the canal's operators quietly did something they hoped they wouldn't have to do again. They reduced the maximum depth of ships allowed through, because the rain is about to be tested. Again. Here's the part that surprises almost everyone. The Panama Canal is not a sea-level channel. Ships don't sail through Panama. They sail over it. Each vessel is lifted about 26 meters above the ocean, carried across a mountain range on an artificial lake, and lowered back down the other side. The elevator doing that lifting is water. Lock chambers fill and empty by gravity. No pumps needed for the ride itself. Water flows downhill from Lake Gatun, the great reservoir at the canal's heart, into the locks, lifting and lowering ships, and then out to sea. That gravity-fed elegance is over a century old, and it still works perfectly. And building it meant building the water itself. In 1913, engineers dammed the Chagres River and drowned an entire valley, villages, railways, forest, to create Lake Gatun, at the time the largest artificial lake on Earth. The canal didn't find its water supply. It manufactured one and asked a valley to disappear for it. Remember that, it's going to rhyme later. When the canal was expanded in 2016 for the giant Neo Panamax ships, engineers already knew water was the choke point, so the new locks came with water-saving basins, enormous side pools that catch about 60% of each lockful and reuse it, like a bathtub that refills itself more than halfway for free. The old locks, though, the ones most ships still use, remain pure 1914, filled from the lake, empty to the sea. Even with the savings, every single transit spends the lake. 200 million liters gone to the ocean per ship. The canal can only sell what the sky deposits. For 100 years, the sky was reliable. Panama is one of the rainiest countries on Earth. Then came 2023. An El Niño year, stacked on a warming climate, delivered one of the driest stretches in the canal's history. Lake Gatun fell toward record lows. And the Canal Authority did the only thing it could. It started rationing the ocean's favorite shortcut. Daily transits were cut from around 36 to the low 20s. Maximum draft, how deep a loaded ship can sit, was reduced meter by meter, which quietly means carry less cargo or don't come. Draft cuts sound technical until you translate them. Every foot of draft a container ship gives up is hundreds of loaded containers left on the dock. Ships crossed lighter, which means the same trade needed more ships, which means everything got more expensive, quietly, everywhere. Then the queue itself became a market. The canal auctions a handful of priority slots, and in the worst weeks of the crisis, desperate operators reportedly bid close to $4 million. Not for the toll, just for the right to not wait. Gas carriers with contracts to keep were paying more to skip the line than to use the canal. Others gave up entirely, rerouting around the Cape of Good Hope, adding weeks of fuel and salaries, or unloading onto trains to cross Panama on rails like it was 1855 again. A machine moving roughly 6% of global maritime trade, by the Canal Authority's own figure, was suddenly running at 2/3 speed because of rain. And the timing was merciless. The squeeze peaked into the 2023 holiday season, with the Red Sea crisis closing in on Suez at the same moment. For a few months, the world's two great shortcuts were both compromised at once, one by missiles, one by meteorology. And here's the twist inside the twist. The canal isn't even the only customer of its own water. Lake Gatun and its sister reservoir also supply drinking water to a huge share of Panama's population, the capital region included. When the canal opened in 1914, Panama had fewer than 500,000 people. Today it has roughly 10 times that. Every decade, more households, more industry, and more ships have lined up at the same rain gauge. So when the lake drops, the Canal Authority isn't just choosing between ships, it's balancing global trade against the water in 4.5 million people's taps. That is the hidden problem. Not a canal running out of water, a country's water budget with a canal attached to it. Then the story flipped, because this is a cycle, not a collapse. La Niña arrived, and through 2025 the rains came back hard. The lake refilled, full drafts returned, 38 transits a day. The canal posted its best year ever, $5.7 billion in revenue, more than 13,000 transits. By February 2026, Gatun was so full the authority had to open the spillway and throw water away. From record drought to deliberately dumping water in under 2 years. That whiplash, not the drought alone, is the real story of the canal now. The machine still works. The fuel gauge just swings harder than it ever has. Which is why June 2026 matters. Forecasters see a possible El Niño building by mid-year. The canal cut its maximum draft, the first reduction since the crisis, before any shortage exists. That's not panic, that's a system that has learned it can no longer trust its own sky. And it's why Panama is about to build its way out. The plan is called Río Indio, a $1.6 billion dam and reservoir on a river west of the canal. 4,600 hectares of new lake, connected by tunnel to the canal system. Construction is planned from 2027 to 2032. The authority calls it the top priority for national water security, and projections suggest it could support up to 15 more transits a day in dry years. On paper, it's the obvious fix, a second rain tank. On the ground, it's someone's home. The valley that would flood is farmed by communities who have been there for generations. And through 2026, as the environmental review moves forward, many of them are fighting the project openly. This is where the story rhymes. A century ago, the canal's builders drowned the Chagres Valley to create Gatun, and the displaced had no say at all. Today, the process has hearings, impact assessments, compensation frameworks, biological corridors written into the design. And still, at the bottom of it, the same question a farmer asked then: why my valley? There's one more lever, slower but cheaper than any dam: the forest itself. A rainforest watershed is a sponge. It catches the rain, holds it, and releases it gradually into the lakes. Decades of deforestation taught Panama that lesson the hard way, and the Canal Authority now funds reforestation across the basin because every hectare of restored forest is storage capacity that nobody has to pour in concrete. It won't replace Rio Indio, but it's the quiet admission that the canal's most important infrastructure was never built by engineers at all. And Panama is no longer the only one building. Across the narrowest part of Mexico, a rebuilt rail line now runs from the Pacific coast to the Gulf. The interoceanic corridor of the Isthmus of Tehuantepec. Containers come off a ship on one ocean, cross the isthmus by train, and go back onto a ship on the other. No locks, no lake, no rain required. Mexico has spent years pitching it as the dry canal, the route that keeps working when Panama has to ration. Its final works are being completed through 2026. Here's the honest math, though. One big Neo-Panamax ship carries well over 10,000 containers. Moving that by land takes dozens of full-length trains, 2 port calls, and 2 rounds of loading and unloading. A land bridge is a pressure valve, not a replacement. It can absorb a squeeze. It cannot absorb a canal. But that was never really the threat. The threat is what a shipping line does after its second bad drought. Routes are habits, and habits are sticky. Panama isn't only racing the weather now, it's racing the chance that its customers stop assuming it will always be there. That's the honest shape of this story. Not a villain, a trade. Global commerce wants certainty. The climate has stopped providing it, and the fix, as it usually does, sends the bill to the people with the least leverage to refuse. So, the verdict. The Panama Canal is not dying. It just finished its richest year in history, and it remains one of the most brilliant pieces of infrastructure ever built. A machine that turns rain into trade. But its core assumption, that the sky above one small country would stay generous forever, is gone. From here on, every El Niño forecast moves shipping prices on the other side of the planet. Every drought in Panama is a global event. One canal, one watershed, 6% of world trade, waiting on the weather report. The biggest builds don't just fight gravity. Sometimes they gamble on the sky. Next time, the most important stretch of water on Earth is barely 30 kilometers wide, and the escape routes built to avoid it cost tens of billions of dollars and still aren't big enough. One of them, a $2 billion pipeline, has pumped almost nothing at all. Thanks for watching BuildPulse. The biggest builds are never just concrete and steel. What project should we break down next?